Animation. I hope you're all super excited. Woo! I know I am. All right, so the way this panel is going to work is I'm going to have lots of questions for these lovely ladies myself, but if any of you have questions for them, I have a special helper running around giving out little postcards like this for anybody who has a question. So just raise your hand, and somebody will come and give you a postcard and a pencil, and you can write your question down, and then that will be taken and given back to me, and maybe I'll be able to answer.
Yeah,
maybe I'll be able to get your question answered up here. All right, so without further ado, here are our lovely ladies.
Because you said it? Yep.
Why is my mic so tall for me? All right. I'm going to get some neck stretches in today. So we're just going to do introductions here. I'm going to have everybody go down the line and just say who you are, what you have worked on in the past, and maybe what you're working on right now.
All right. So I'll start. I'm Lauren Faust. I've worked on shows as a writer, storyboarder, director on shows like Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and My Little Pony. And I'm currently a producer at Warner Brothers Animation.
All right.
Hey everybody, my name's Careen Ingle. I was a storyboard artist on Peabody and Sherman's show. I've worked on China, Illinois and stuff, and I'm a director on Unikitty right now.
Hi, I'm Kat Good. I was at Disney Feature for many years, on a lot of films from Hercules to Treasure Planet. Then I was at DreamWorks Feature for about 10 years on Kung Fu Panda and Rise of the Guardians, Peabody and Sherman. And then I went to Disney TV Animation, where I directed on Pen Zero Part-Time Hero and Big Hero 6 the series, and now I'm currently in development working on 2 original projects for them.
Hi, my name is Larsen-Dockray, and I'm an occasional special faculty at CalArts in the Experimental Animation program. I teach a class called The Animated Woman there, which is about the representation of women as characters and as creators. I'm also a teaching artist where I teach animation and art at Inner City Arts, and I also teach in my hometown of Nebraska in summers, and I'm a business owner.
Hi, I'm Katrina Hadley. Currently, well, what you know me for is directing on the Equestria Girls series. In the past, I've worked mostly as a storyboarder, but I've done a bit of design and some BG cleanup. So.
All right, now remember guys, if you have any questions for these lovely ladies, just raise your hand and somebody will come around with postcards that you can write your questions down on. But I guess we're going to get started here at the very beginning. I guess everyone here would probably want to know where you guys got your start. Like, what age did you start at, what your first jobs were, and maybe when you first realized or felt like you were really a professional.
My first job was at a no longer existing studio called Turner Feature Animation on a little movie called Cats Don't Dance. I was a junior in college at California Institute of the Arts, and a teacher of mine encouraged me to submit my portfolio in Reel, and I got a job as an assistant animator, which was very exciting. And you know, I think that was it. Like bringing home a paycheck, getting a check for drawing pictures and having fun, and that was it. That was when I knew I was a professional animator.
First thing I ever worked on was about a year out of school. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a show called Doc McStuffins?
Yeah.
that's a 3D show, and I guess it takes a long time to produce a season of that, so they wanted some 2D shorts. So I worked in a studio called Oddbot. We animated all those, and it was like, oh, nice, I'm getting paid for working. That was cool, but I think really the first time I really felt it was when I was on Peabody and Sherman, because I was boarding, and that's what I really wanted to do. And it's like you get to pitch a whole episode, everybody laughs, and it's like, nice, yes. So that was probably when I felt like I was like there.
My first job out of CalArts was at Disney Feature Animation on Hercules as a cleanup artist. So, yeah.
Put your hand up again when you're done.
We did it. We got out of school and we got where we wanted to be and we got paid. Kat and I were roommates, by the way, at CalArts.
No way, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I would have never known that.
Let's see. Well, when I was 15, I worked with my brother who had a multimedia business, and that's when I started realizing that there was all of these other positions out there, like graphic designers and video producers and web designers. So that's kind of where I started thinking about being a multimedia artist. And there wasn't any, I'm from Nebraska, there was nothing, no studios anywhere. So, but before I graduated college, my undergrad, I got a gig at a motion graphics studio in Phoenix. And I think that was like, my first job was doing graphics for BMW, and I was 22, and I was just like, oh my God. And interviewing people in the real world suites in Vegas, and it was very cool. But I also really like to teach, so I was trying to figure out all of these different ways of combining my love for animation and for technology and art making, but also working with kids and teaching. And it wasn't until I got here in LA and realized that there was a job called a teaching artist that I was like, oh, that's the thing that I've been trying, oh, there's a thing, there's a name for what I'm trying to do. So way later in life, I figured out that being a teaching artist was kind of what I was after. So yeah.
My first job was a background cleanup for this show called Slim Pig, which ran on, I think, Canadian and British TV, made by Atomic Cartoons, sort of was like a weird freelance thing. They put me in the kitchen with the foosball table. So if you know anything about cleanup, and this was old school hand drawn on paper, and I'm cleaning up and someone bumped me, like, oh, now I gotta like start all over because my whole page is wrecked, or I have to cut that piece out. So that was my first job. I guess I felt professional. I think when I really, it's hard when everyone's eating their stinky fish next to you. Fortunately, they moved me out of that room because they had two guys on builds who talked way too much and annoyed everyone on the floor, so they moved me out of there and put them in there. So that was a lot better, but that was a weird job. I did a lot of FedEx things to Ireland. It was strange. But I think when I actually got to do storyboard revisions at Bardell on a little show called Edgar and Ellen is kind of when I started to feel professional a bit more, yeah.
Cool. All right. And I guess we should talk about what really inspired you guys to get into this field. Like, what media did you guys consume as kids, or like what really, touched you when you were younger that kind of drove you to pick the path that you ended up picking, if anything, or if you just kind of ended up winding up doing what you're doing, So I guess we'll start with Lauren.
I come from a family of drawers. So I always, I remember drawing my whole life since I was 3, my brothers as well, and I was into cartoons a lot longer than the other kids. I was in high school kind of closeted that I was still watching DuckTales. I think I knew pretty early on that was, I was like more of a geek about it, I guess. It wasn't until high school that it dawned on me that could be a job that you could have. But, I just consumed, like you said, I just consumed media, and it was cartoons, it was Disney movies, it was Bugs Bunny cartoons, it was Saturday morning stuff, it was cool stuff that came in from Japan, it was comic books, superhero comic books, X-Men. all of it just sort of melted into my brain, and it's still there. So it just seemed, I don't know, once I found out about CalArts and found out that this was a job it could be, it just seemed obvious, so I just pursued it from there.
I mean, I always, growing up, I really liked Far Side comics. I read those all the time. Like, pretty much anytime there was like Looney Tunes or some cartoon where they were making fun of how cartoons worked. Like, if you guys seen that Daffy Duck cartoon, Duck a Buck, where he's fighting animated the whole time. It was just like, those were always my favorites. So it was just like, oh, like that. And then it's just, I always drew comics growing up, and I never really showed them to anybody just because, like, I like drawing for fun. And then people saw them, they're like, oh, this is fun to show them to people too. I want to do this for a job. And it's just, animation is just a natural progression from there. You get to tell the weirdest jokes, like in cartoons, far weirder than live action. So it's just seems like the obvious way to go, if you ask me.
Like Lauren, I think I was into cartoons way longer than most kids. We lived in Italy when I was in middle school, and there was no American television, so I was exposed to Italian cartoons, which was actually anime, and I didn't know that at the time. It was just dubbed in Italian, so I just assumed it was Italian. But I just thought that was so amazing, like what they could do, because that wasn't in Disney cartoons, but obviously affected by Disney, and my older brother was a huge influence. Like, he got me into Bond movies and watched X-Men comics, and I would run home from high school to watch like Disney Afternoon with him and watch DuckTales and sing the theme songs to everything. But we were like watching Battlestar Galactica and like singing along to the theme song. It doesn't have words. We sang anyway, you know. And then because of that time in Italy, we because there was no television really, we were getting movies and DVDs, or not DVDs, it was VHS back then. But I was just reading voraciously books. Madeleine L'Engle's like a huge influence on me. And I think that over there, I took a painting class after school, and that was when the art bug hit. And then when we came back to the States, I remember seeing on the Disney Channel the video of the 9 old men painting a tree, and that was the first time it dawned on me that that was a job. And that this thing that I loved and I used to run home watching every single day, there's people getting paid to do that. And I just thought that was awesome, and I wanted to be a part of that in any little way possible. So when my first job was in cleanup, I realized I should have dreamed a little bit higher. Because when you put that on like a bank application for a house and you write cleanup, it sounds like you work as a janitor somewhere. So I moved on from that position over time. But
If anybody went to my When I Grow Up talk, this is going to be a little repetitive for you, but since I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, like I grew up on a ranch 50 miles from a town that was 1,000 people. So I had 3 channels, and we watched a lot of British comedies and a lot of like Doctor Who, and we would rent videos from the library, which were usually very obscure anime like Unico. Anybody watch Unico? You know what I mean? But also, I got this really rare opportunity that my oldest brother, who's 10 years older than me, this was during the 80s, he actually would go to his friend's house and videotape MTV and bring it home. And so music videos were the thing for me. And there's so much animation in those 80s music videos that really combine all of this wacky stuff. And I always felt that that would be the coolest job ever, is to work on music videos, and also Bob Ross, huge.
Oh my God, same.
Huge to me. He was my first art teacher.
I literally spent all of last weekend watching nothing but Bob Ross.
I know he's back on Netflix. Yes.
Have you guys seen the episode where he has a squirrel in his pocket?
Yeah!
It's the best. Yeah.
He was in the Air Force.
I guess me.
Sergeant of Mr.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Canada. Winters are long. You don't go outside. There's not a lot to do other than reading. We also only had like 3 channels, 4 channels. We called it peasant vision. A lot of Monty Python. My parents are big nerds, so my mom read me like the Lord of the Rings books. Like,
they would buy fantasy novels and we just pass it around the family. So I always grew up with these huge epics and stories, and I loved stories, and every family vacation was camping in the Rockies, going hiking. And to keep us kids interested, my parents would tell stories or have us tell stories. So I think storytelling and coming up with fantastical situations and characters has always been kind of my thing. And then I really like drawing, so I would try to draw some of those characters or draw little stories. And then I kind of got into comic books when I was a teenager, which was super weird for my town. I was a stone cold weirdo, and that was fine with me because whatever, I'm having fun. And they're all buttoned up and trying to be something they weren't, and who cares? I'm having fun wearing Hawaiian t-shirts. So
John Lasseter.
that was pretty good. And then Sailor Moon happened. And it was like, oh my God, they're all girls and they're all different. Like it was this weird thing. Like where, I go back and watch the show now, I'm like, it's not that good, but I love it. I love it. And then I just started drawing comics nonstop, and I just kind of realized this is it for me. This is all I want to do. This is the only place I feel calm. My brain's not screaming at me. I'm not full on anxiety mode is when I'm drawing. So I have to do this. I have to do this. And then we just kind of looked into schools, and then ended up going out to Vancouver when I was about 20. I went to art school first because I needed a portfolio because I couldn't draw well. Still can't. Ish. So that's kind of how it happened for me.
All right, well, kind of tying back into this, a question from the audience. Can you share with us an experience or moment that inspires you or helps you get through those tough days or whenever you're discouraged? Like, what do you go back and think about to really help motivate you?
So not whiskey? Not booze? No?
Mike's Heart is my biggest motivator.
Oh, you're still drinking that kitty crap? You want to be a real animator, you need some scotch.
I am a real animator. I wore flannel.
Alex here. Dang.
I don't like being first. I usually listen. I don't listen to anybody else, and I try to think, what am I going to say?
No pressure.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Well, I guess what you mean, like when things are really hard, is like when you're up against a deadline.
When you're feeling down and things are getting like rough, or you have a deadline really close, like what do you go back to maybe that really helps drive you, or what do you think about that helps bring that motivation through?
For me, it's that I've got something to say. I know that's not the case for a lot of people. Some people, it's like just their love of art and their, creative drive. And a lot of times that's actually a struggle for me, like the work. I don't have the love for the labor that a lot of people have, and there's a lot of labor. It's a lot of work. But for me, I've got something to say, and I believe, perhaps naively, that what I have to say is important to some people. In particular, I really kind of have always driven my career towards trying to do things that are positive for girls. And that's because I felt shortchanged as a girl. So that continues to be the big driver for me, like especially now that, I'm kind of known and I have a reputation, I'm like, I can use this to help people. So when it's hard, or when I don't think I'm getting through, or a project gets canceled, I, let myself believe that what I have to say is important and helps people, and that's a big driver for me.
So I guess whenever I'm stuck creatively at work, we got a script and it's just, we're not feeling it, it's not working. It's just like, just sit down and it's like, how can we make this weirder? It's just like, you just pull your like whoever you're working on the episode with, and it's just like, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna brainstorm for about an hour and a half, and we're just gonna try and make this weird. And usually, and it's like, we don't have to talk about the episode, it's just like, what does this remind you of? And then you just go, you know, you talk about B movies, you talk about some stupid thing you saw on YouTube or something. Eventually, you will find something you can use. And that's the best part of the whole episode when you do that. It's like, you'll just end up with like, last one we were working on, there is a video, it's like, I don't know, look it up when you get home, it's super fun. It's called like Emu's Pink Windmill Kids, and it's these 6 or 8 like British people in the 80s, and they're all kids, and they all say their names. It was like a meme last year, and then they dance it. Oh, they're feeling it so hard. And like, I'm like, I found it. Okay, cool, we fixed this episode. I sent a link to my board artist at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm like, you guys, you gotta watch this. They're like, we know what to do now. So that's, I don't know, that's my advice. It's just like, just think about something weird that you like, that you think is funny, and like, you're in. Yeah.
For me, when things get hard, I have to go back to the whole reason why I wanted to work in animation in the first place. I mean, I was a military brat who moved around a lot and was lonely, and it was really hard to make friends. And so those Disney films, I mean, they gave me like, I don't know, hope, belief, faith in things that I didn't necessarily feel at the time. And when I discovered animation was a job you could have, I really felt like if I could be part of something that helps make another little kid feel the way that those guys helped me feel growing up, not so alone, then it was gonna be worth it. That would be a life worth living. And so when stuff gets hard at work, I just try to remember that that was the call of service that I felt in my soul. And then somewhere along the lines of my career, I became this veteran person. And because I worked long enough, I guess. And then I realized it wasn't just a call of service to this audience out there, this someone I never would know who was affected by something I worked on. It was the people who work with me and for me. When I became a director, I realized that I had a lot of impact on young rising story artists who were talented and whose skills just needed to be grown and crafted, and especially the young female story artists who needed to be championed and needed to be mentored and needed to be brought to attention to the executives and other showrunners so that they could be, you know, given positions of leadership and power. Because when I got in the business, there was largely a group of women who were ambivalent to the desire of women of my age coming in, wanting to kind of get into animation and climb up. So I just had vowed never to do that. So I think for me, when things get hard, I remember why I'm in it and what it means to me personally, and that helps me get through some of the yucky stuff we have to deal with day to day.
Nice, that's a big one to follow. All right, okay. I feel like I have a huge benefit as a teacher because when you are ready to just pile up your stills and just throw a match and just be like done with it. I get to teach these kids about animation, and to see how excited they get is just like, all right, yes, this is cool, I should keep doing this. And they're like this infinite source of inspiration and energy. And even when I have, I bring in CalArts students that teach with me. I have a student from UCLA, and I work with students from USC, and they always tell me like, they're like shells of themselves in college at the moment, and they're just like, oh God, I'm so worn down from doing animation at school so much. They come in and teach, and they see these kids respond and be like, they're so excited, and they're like, this is exactly what I needed. It's like a therapeutic moment where you realize that what you're giving a gift, you have a gift, you can give that gift to these kids. And I also think about, myself when I was that age and how cool that would have been for me, that opportunity, and just paying it forward. I think that when it really gets tough, it's just knowing that you have that ability to really help others. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I gotta follow both of you. I think for me, in the Canadian system, it's a lot of just service work. So you're working on stuff that no one's ever gonna see. It's gonna be a 4 a.m. block, just shut the kids up at lunch or whatever. So I think there's a lot of just, for me, it's the process that I like, and just that how lucky I am that I get to use a skill set that I love doing, and they pay me for it, and it pays my bills. But I think, just to speak a bit about like art block, or when you get really frustrated, here's something that I learned to do, which was hard to do, which is, I call it unclench. You have to sometimes go, you know what, nothing is working today, I'm just not gonna do it anymore today. I'm done. And I'm gonna go home, I'm not gonna think about work, I'm not gonna feel guilty that I'm not doing work, and I'm just gonna do stuff that I like. Because sometimes you're working so much, you know, creativity is not an infinite font. It doesn't just run all the time. And I kind of use the Dust Bowl as a reference. They farmed that land until it had nothing left in it, and then it was a dust bowl. You can't till your field all the time. You have to let it lie fallow every once in a while and fill it up with nutrients. You're just watching cartoons or watching dumb YouTube or like Vine or some crap. And just, you know.
I don't know, Emu's Pink Windmill Kids is not dumb.
Yeah.
It's the highest of art.
Or the highest of art.
Yeah.
You know, like that type of thing. And then you kind of refuel. And if you can kind of give yourself a break from the anxiety of trying to hit that deadline, you're gonna come back the next day and you're gonna do double the amount of work that you were gonna get done.
Can you teach me that?
It took years.
I get to the point where I'm like, I have to stop because of that. I'm like, I've got nothing else to give. I can't let go to guilt and anxiety.
Whiskey.
I wish it helped. It doesn't.
I get in the bathtub.
I'll try whiskey because I guess vodka's not doing it.
There's other cocktails that I use because I don't like wine and I don't like beer, but
What
I like,
happened to the White Russians, remember?
right? Yeah.
They still happen.
We used to come home from nights at CalArts and just drink White Russians all the time.
Yeah, that was our drink.
We called it like a milkshake or something. It was funny. Just like the first time she tried to say, this is really good.
Remember, folks, drink responsibly.
Exactly. To your point,
I barely drink. Just FYI, you don't have to drink to be an animator.
No, you don't.
If you want to, it's cool. It used to be the way everybody died. And now there's like women doing it. So.
we wrote a drunken ode to White Russians one night.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Do you remember? I have it written down somewhere.
Send it to me. I forgot.
To your point though, I had a story once who, when I got my first storyboarding assignment, she comes to my office and there's just a pile of paper on the ground, you know, and she walks in and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, boarding? And she said, you just got launched an hour ago. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, And she's like, come on. And she took me outside for coffee and she's like, you percolate.
Yeah,
you sit with this. And she taught me percolating, that it was that you didn't have to like jump in right
Somebody
away.
needs to drill this into line producers' heads.
Right? Yeah. Production people don't know this.
Because it's true, but they don't care.
Well, and they don't see it as creative work.
You need that bake time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I used
And
to get my script, I would read it, and like the first day on the meeting, and then I would go home and do nothing about it because I'm percolating it. But for real, I was letting my subconscious work on it. So when I sat down to my desk, it was just instinct was doing it because I'd done the thinking.
Yeah.
And you're right, because when you rest, like, I feel like I'm the only person in the world who loves Mondays because I get so much done because I was resting at least the day before. I mean, not now, but like when you can not work on the weekends, like Mondays and Tuesdays are like amazing.
If you can get over the
By
guilt.
Thursday, it's like, forget it.
Yeah. If you can get over the guilt of not doing anything.
Yeah, the guilt.
Because that'll just wear you out even though you're not working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm always like, I'm gonna do this when I get home. I'm tired, and then I get home and I'm like, I'm tired.
Hashtag.
And you know what? And then I just do it the next morning. It's no big deal. I'm good at what I do. You know?
I mean, one of the things that I was always told is like boredom breeds creativity. So like stepping back and taking a break and like fully taking a break, putting the computer away, putting your phone down, putting your sketchbook away, and just maybe going on like a walk or like going on a drive and just giving yourself some time alone with your brain really helps you mull things over and just relax and maybe get some ideas going of what you want to do.
Or just go to the bathroom, that always works.
Yeah.
Lay on your back, stare at the ceiling.
I binge watch Stranger Things. So.
Yeah. All right, so things in the industry aren't always, sunshine and roses, so I guess we'll start getting to the more hard-hitting questions here. What would you say would be one of the hardest things about your job? One of the things that you maybe struggle with the most or have the most trouble with day to day?
Deadlines and notes. I mean, which is like obvious and boring, but like, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. It's like, this is hard, and like you said, it's like creativity isn't a faucet you can turn on and off. You do have a finite amount, but it's, you got deadlines. And deadlines are hard enough, and you struggle against the deadlines, but then when you get notes that you don't like, you're all like, this is already so hard. And it isn't, I'm a bit of a jerk about notes. I just don't like them. And I have to have a good 20 minutes to be mad about them. Like, I need to get them emailed to me so I can have a tantrum before, and then I answer them all email, and then I go back and edit so it's nice. But I mean, and that's it. It's like, it is, the process is challenging. It's challenging because you're going really fast. It's challenging because you're trying to get a whole lot of people on the same page. It's challenging because there's a lot of pressure. It's challenging because being creative is challenging. And then when somebody kind of steps in and doesn't get it or tells you to change something you worked really hard on and you really don't understand why, like that's honestly the worst of it. I try really hard. Like, I feel like I'm in a position in my life now when I go to interview for jobs, I'm like interviewing back. Because I want to know if I want to work for you or not. Like, do you want me and do you want what I do? Because I don't want to have to fight with you all the time. I hate fighting. I just want to make it. So that's the thing I hate the most.
We've been teaching our young story artists, when they interview for a show, they should be interviewing back as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing. You need to decide if this is somebody you want to work for, and then you have to hope that person doesn't get fired and replaced by somebody you don't want to work for, which also happens.
I mean, if it's your first job, take what you can get.
Yes,
Once you're already in, be like, what do I want to work for you? Because if you get a bad vibe, you're probably right.
It's like dating. Yeah.
But
I don't like him. I'm not going out.
You gotta spend way more time with them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, like, probably, I don't know. Notes are tough, but like, if they give you enough time to get the notes done, and you can do them, like I don't want you to do this. We can't do them. Like, okay, give me enough time to like subvert this note in a way that technically works, and then I'm okay. But
does that happen?
Oh, sometimes for me.
I never get that. I get
figure it out. I'm a director. I'm a step below, so I get a little more time to figure it out. I don't know. Probably one of the things that was the hardest to get used to isn't so much the case on Unikitty because we have about a 50-50 male-female staff. We're approaching that, but on the show I was previously on, it was like there were writers and the board artists were also writers, and I was a board artist, and there were 15 of us total, and the only girl was me, and it was just like, I'd always be like, they'd always like make all the incidental characters male, or like, not write the female character, like it's like the female character is always girl, and it's like, you can just write it a person, and it's just female, and all this stuff, and I would say all these things that they'd always like tease me, and they're like, oh, Careen wants more girls in the background. I'm like, yeah, half the people on Earth are women. And also, like, 80% of the people who watch this show are women. Like, it's not PC police, it's just reality, So and then sometimes when you're a girl and then you're also younger than all your coworkers, if you care about something really hard, people think you're acting out and you get disciplined. And they're all like, you need to be way more easygoing. Your coworkers don't complain about this. I'm like, that's because they don't care, you know? I want this episode to be good and funny, and you guys need to do what I say. And they're like, they wouldn't let a character, I really wanted, there was a character who was on People Need to Show Me an episode where Potato Chip ran for president. And then I really wanted the episode to end with them eating the chip, and they're like, you can't have him eat the chip. And I'm like, that's all anybody's gonna want the entire time. Ah! And like, the table was too heavy to flip, and they're like, it was.
That's one way.
My male coworkers didn't like if they did something like, which to be fair they didn't. I was the least easygoing person there, but. Like even like equivalent stuff, it was always I got in trouble because girls are supposed to behave a little different, at least in like older dudes' eyes. Sometimes they were mostly cool, but it was like they were all like dads, you know. So it was like I don't know, that's crummy to deal with sometimes, but you know how you solve that? Just have more women on your crew.
Yeah.
So the boring part is the schedule. I hate the schedule. I don't even mind the notes as much as I hate that note is not possible in the amount of time I have left to do this in, and you're not going to change anything about that. Like, I'm currently working on something that we've been in boards for about 3 weeks, and we got a rewrite, and I'm still supposed to pitch it, and brand new pages. So I have 5 days to do what I should have had 21 to do, and it's insanity, and they just don't listen. And so it's that immovability with this creative thing where they don't seem to understand what it takes for us to do our job.
I find that sometimes production, we're accountable to them, but they're not accountable to us.
Yes, exactly.
That is a huge issue that we all have, and it makes a divide between the people who make your schedule and the people who actually have to carry it out.
Sometimes they're trying to trick you.
Yeah.
And you can be like, nah, I'm gonna get it to you this day.
Yeah.
And you know what? They might have to be like, okay.
Yeah, sometimes you just force them to take it, but like, yeah, there's...
Well, and I came from feature, so I used to get paid for overtime, so to work in television where that doesn't happen...
Very different.
Very different. And so as a director, I used to fight all the time with production, say like, I don't want my people working for free, so if you want that, this is what it's gonna require. And then they didn't like me very much about
Well,
that
then we
stuff.
go, well, I know this person will do it for free. Like, you know,
there's a lot of
yeah.
unconscious pressure on people to like do these hours and not tell them that they were doing it. And so I was just nosy and loud and like objected about it a lot, and I don't know how that went on this particular show I was on. But there is something, so that's the boring stuff. What you were talking about made me realize there's this unconscious bias thing I know we keep talking about and out there, but I even with well-meaning guys, like when I was on Pen Zero, I had to, as a board artist, the first season, I had to have a 20-minute argument with my showrunner, the head writer, my director, and the other writer, all men, and I had to tell them that being called a tomboy is not an insult to a girl. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, it is. I'm like, no. This girl, Sashi, she's a kick-ass girl. You can call her a tomboy. She's like, yeah. You know, like, that's a badge of honor. And I'm like, in 1980, that was an insult. That's not an insult today.
You're a girl. You don't know anything about girls.
Wait, and I literally said that, and I was there like, who's the girl in the room? I think I have some legitimacy to say this.
If you speak out at all, it's just like, young lady, you're not supposed to be acting.
I know, I was...
Like, I am an adult, I have the same job.
It was worse, I was told to calm down.
Yeah.
Oh! How many of you got the Madeir?
Oh,
My dear.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think I've ever done
Oh, yeah.
Is that a good
Animation Madeir. First of all, buddy, I have way more experience than you do. Madeir.
Bambi.
Really, dude? Really?
Smile.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do.
Are you okay? You're frowning. I'm fucking concentrating. That's just my face.
I had a director who was afraid of me because he thought I'm always looked angry, and I was like, no, that's my concentration face.
Yeah, this one.
I have that really bad. They're like, he's kind of scared of you. I'm like, why? Because you look angry all the time. I'm sorry, it just does that.
So maybe I am getting the tape and you're trying to like tape your eyebrows not.
That's why Botox came along to help us.
I sit in meetings sometimes because it's when you're concentrating. You scowl when you're listening really hard. And I've sit in meetings where I've realized I wasn't listening because in my head I'm going like eyebrows up, eyebrows up, eyebrows up, eyebrows up, like trying to keep my eyes open. Then I'm like, oh, I don't know what he's saying now.
Can you imagine though how terrifying it would be, like just a room of women working and they're all just big smiles, happy all the time? That would be mortifying for me. Like what do they expect, you know?
It's called Stuffer.
So yeah, my next question was, what are some of the struggles that you face because you are a woman in the industry? And that kind of got covered.
Yeah, we kind of went there.
It's very easy to go there and start ranting there. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more. I mean,
You can imagine that the hardest part of your job is discrimination based.
Right.
yeah.
No, that wasn't a bummer. That was just me. It's like, it was the hardest part of your job. Is this thing that's very obvious? Oh, what about this question about this thing that's very obvious?
But yeah, I remember talking with you, Lauren, at Nightmare Nights. Girl goggles was the term that you brought up, that you face a lot when you're working on female content.
Yeah, that's
content made for women.
Going back to notes. Yeah, girl goggles. That's like when you're working on a show that's about girls, all of a sudden the feedback is very different. All of a sudden none of your characters are nice. A character being funny suddenly turns into being unlikable. That happens a lot. And I feel like when somebody's making a show or producing a show for girls, there's all of a sudden these rules that come out of nowhere. Again, back to nice and likable, but suddenly, see, here's the thing I feel like about like entertainment for girls. Like all too often, it's not about entertaining girls, it's about teaching them how we expect them to be. And like all of a sudden shows for girls are lessons for girls and not just having fun or being funny or being entertaining or being like quality storytelling or what part of being quality storytelling is being relatable, which is reflecting back how, if it is targeted at girls, how girls really feel. So I get a lot of flack whenever I have a character express anger. Yeah, that's like, that's awful. Or when you have like a character be mad at her friends, all of a sudden they're like, no, they're supposed to be friends. They love and support each other all the time. I'm like, yeah, well, people who love each other argue sometimes. And if you're really concerned about lessons, let's teach girls how to handle that very real aspect of life. Sometimes you and your best friend fight. Sometimes you do something wrong. Sometimes you make a mistake. If we are going to teach them stuff, let's teach them reality. So, and that's what I say. It's like girl goggles. And kind of back to what we were saying about like dudes telling us what girls think. I love when I get lectures about what is and isn't empowering to girls from guys. That's really hard to handle. I'm like, really, me? You're telling me that? I call it girl goggles. As soon as it's a show about a girl, there's like a new pair. You're looking at it a totally different way, and you're looking at it a totally stupid way.
We have issues because on a lot of our shows, there's only one female character.
Yeah,
and
she represents
she has to be every girl that ever existed in all time and can be relatable to every single one of them.
Yeah.
And they're also very terrified of a female character being the lead, of the show, because they need to make sure that it's still not his sister's show. That the boys watching it won't think that this is his sister's show.
Yeah.
So make sure that your show, I've literally heard this from an exec, is a boy safe space.
Yeah.
And I said, animation's been a boy safe space my entire childhood.
Yeah.
So when can we start telling other kinds of stories?
Well, and
that don't exclude the them either. They need to have good, healthy roles.
But I think things are different, especially for kids, for little kids. I don't think boys go, ew, girls, as much as they used to. I think boys can watch a show about a girl. If you make them smart, if you make them compelling, if you make them interesting, boys have the capability to relate to girls these days. And just because you, this 50-something-year-old guy executive, is really uncomfortable about little girl stuff, even though you hate girls, doesn't mean that the recent 10-year-old boy hates girls, and they just can't seem to let that one go.
So on Unikitty, we frequently get notes saying that we actually don't ever get angry enough.
Yay! Can I work on
She
your
turns
show?
red and looks cool, but then the other thing is, so like on the promo image, like I don't know if you guys have seen like the commercial for Unikitty that comes out every so often, but it's like Unikitty is a boy and a girl shit. Like Unikitty's for everybody, as they focus test kids, they realize it's like kids nowadays are actually much nicer than kids from the 90s. They like to work together. They just want to see friends solve a problem, and boys and girls really don't seem to care that much. It's like I like watching girls, I like watching boys, both are cool. Is it someone fun that I like to watch? Cool. But all there's one commercial that keeps airing for Unikitty. It's like, hey everybody, it's Unikitty from the Lego Movie. Also, we've got a half-hawk bodyguard, and he'd shoot his arms off, and we got explosions. And it's like, kaboom, and it's like, this commercial's for boys. And it's like, every time like a coworker has brought like a kid into the office, and not even a coworker on our show, they see like the big Unikitty mirror and they're like, Unikitty's gonna be on TV, I love Unikitty! And it's like, they don't care that she's pink or anything, they're just excited to see her.
No, they like that she's funny.
Yeah, that commercial is like for people's parents.
Yeah.
Boys nowadays, and like older boys, like middle school boys are like, yes!
Your son
Unikitty.
can watch this and not be a sissy.
Yeah, it's like, no, everything's for everybody now. There's not boys shows and girls shows. They're just shows, and they're good or they're bad.
Yeah.
And the show's only for one thing. It's not good.
I think that, you know, that gender bias, that gender binary, we are putting that on the kids. I feel like the more that I talk with the kids out here that I teach, they get it, they know it, like they don't think like that. And I think a lot of the content, it's so obvious that that's content is derived from those, the triggers of the guys who are making the films, you know, or the shows. Like we're seeing their sort of influence on how we think kids should be instead of what kids are right now. You know, that they aren't. They're just shows. We're gendering the shows. The producers are gendering the shows. The kids don't want gendered shows.
Toy companies.
So when I was little,
marketing. Yeah. Marketing.
When I was little, I liked all the boy shows. And it's like, can this just be a show, please?
Absolutely.
I like this one better. It's more fun. It's got explosions. Girls like explosions too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe just turn the top a little. Yeah, working on girls' shows can be really disappointing because of how I found, especially if you make a character angry, then she has to learn her lesson that she was, she was too, harsh.
Say sorry to everybody.
She would say sorry, but it's like sometimes she's mad about something that's totally legit. She is legitimately validated in that anger, and the other people should apologize to her. How dare she raise her voice?
I got a note on a script recently where a female character was angry and actually like exacting her revenge.
Yay.
And I got the note like she's too angry, she's being too mean, and I was like, but the guy who did it to her was being really mean. Like I didn't get the note on what the guy did to make her so mad. So when I went to fix it, I made the guy a bigger jerk. So you felt more bad for her. And then I had, there was a thing at the end in the original script, Wonder Woman said, good for you, Kara, when you had the choice to, care about somebody else's feelings or indulge your selfish whims, you chose the right path. That was my first line. And I changed it to, when you had the opportunity to, care about somebody's feelings or enact your right to revenge, you chose the honorable path. So the character supported the girl, and you have the right to be angry. I supported you, but it was cool that you were nice instead. Yeah. I mean, we're not making that one. And then I think maybe later when they're more comfortable with angry girls.
I hope so, because I'm an angry girl. And then the thing I find right now at DHX, I'm the only female series director. I'm the only one. So what I find happens to me is I have double think, where I'm like, am I feeling like I'm being discriminated against or kind of not being listened to because I'm female, or because this is just the particular situation with this particular person who talks over everybody? Or are they talking over me because I'm a woman? I don't know. I can't compare notes with anybody. I can go ask the other men if that happens to them, but
or I turn it back to myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Or are they not listening to me because I suck?
Yeah.
Because I'm no good, because I'm not good at what I do. And I've been in situations where, and I have a little bit of validation because I've worked with my husband, and I've seen it. I've seen me give a note and somebody fight me on it, and then Craig walk in, didn't know I gave that note, gave the same note, and they listen, and I'm like, oh! I can't even count how many times that's happened to me, so I know it's because I'm a woman.
Yeah, and I am situated because my co-director Ishii, he's a man, and we do everything together. Now, he is more senior than me. He's been in the business longer, and he comes from animation, not board. So when we're doing rough cuts, I'll say something, no one will respond. He'll repeat what I said, and then everyone will do the thing. And I'm like, is that because Ishii is technically senior, so they're waiting for him to sign off on that, or is it because he's the dude in the room? Because when he's not in the room, there's never that problem. But I don't know, because I can't compare it. I can't say, hey Sarah, you also worked with Ishii as a director. Was that also a thing for you? I'm the only one. And so you get in these weird, you can't just make a decision sometimes. You have to double think your reaction. You're constantly double thinking your reaction. So it's exhausting because you're always monitoring your freaking emotions.
You have to convince yourself that especially when you're in the leadership positions, you just have to be pushy and just go I'm sorry, I'm in charge and you have to listen to me.
Sometimes also I go, are the men worrying about it? No? Then I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
They're putting their foot in their mouth, they're messing up, they're saying really dumb things, and no one's firing them and no one's on their butt.
They get more free passes than
they do. They do, but I do.
But a storm's coming.
Ew. Yeah.
I also think
Something happened at Nickelodeon. I hope it keeps happening.
I just want to throw this out here. This is a good point. We read in The Animated Woman, we read excerpts from this book called The Feminist Fight Club, and it's all about, it actually names those tactics that we deal with in the workplace. It's an incredible book. It talks about, being talked over and how to get through that. If you have a woman in the other room, well, you're kind of screwed, but if you have another woman in the room, repeat what you said, but, not take the idea, stuff like that. It's called The Feminist Fight Club. It's a really great book. There's actually names for that. It's not, you don't have to deal with paranoia. There's actually names for some of that stuff.
And when it comes to being talked over, you talk over them. I'm not even kidding. That's advice I give people. It's nobody, especially if you're the only girl in the room, nobody shuts up to hear what the girl thinks. So you just get loud and you interrupt. And I had a job once where the 3 power positions, I was the director, the producer was a woman, and the president of the studio was a woman. We could not talk around each other. Yeah. We just constantly interrupted each other. And no one could finish a sentence. And we were all in there going I'm not backing down. We were all it was actually kind of hilarious because I'd never been in that situation before. It was amazing.
I think I got to where I was because I always just offered my opinion, solicited or not. I would walk in, I'd be like, can I come to the animatic when I was still a board artist? And then I'd be like, that shot's too short. You should add some time. And I would just say it. And then after a while, they're like, well, she knows what she's talking about because she won't shut up. So
confidence is good,
Yeah.
but you do have to be careful with the anger. If you're angry or grabs you about it, they don't like it.
Yeah, you have to learn to advocate for yourself in ways that don't piss them off.
Humor's a good one.
Oh yeah, a lot of the
Yeah, you can say whatever you want if you're funny. It's true. I mean, it's a tactic. It really is. Like, especially if somebody's like actually being a jerk to you, you just like turn around and say something jerky back, but pretend you're being funny. Like, it works.
I think it also helps to have advocates around you. Like, I was in a situation where I had to leave a show because of a lot of this discussion, and I had an EP just constantly talking over me, and I just got to the point where I'm like, I know the studio wants me here, but I get the impression they don't want me here, so I'm gonna put it back on the studio. You know, like, you want me on this show because you want my voice. I don't have a voice. What am I doing there? Get me on something else. And we made it happen. But it literally just gets to a point where I'm like, if they want to have a little boys club over there and make that thing, enjoy. You know?
Yeah, no, I've left jobs because I'm like, I don't want me here, and I don't want to stick around. So I'll go find someplace I'm wanted.
Find your people.
I guess on like a slightly more positive note, though, I will say that if you are vocal enough about something and you are consistent, then I will say, so I mentioned that like I'd get steamrolled a lot at my old job, or at least I did for a little bit. Everybody would be like, oh, Kareem wants more girl characters on People in Sherman. But eventually everybody was being like, we have to make sure it's half and half female characters. And like my coworkers would come up and be like, you know what, I never really thought about it, but yeah, it actually should be half and half. And then it eventually came to me, and most of the board artists had a rule where it was like, no white dudes. Because, to be fair, on Peabody and Sherman, it was the characters had to be, if a historical figure had to be dead for 100 years for us to be able to use them, which kind of puts the bias on white dudes, because like, it's recent history that gets more diverse. So it was pretty much, the rule was, they're so overrepresented on the show already, it was if we can go on Wikipedia and find someone who fits, who's either from another country, or is a woman, or like did something cooler, or had something a little more interesting, but we did it, and it ended up, season 3 and 4 ended up like way more diverse for it. So it's, people are willing to, if you keep bringing it up, people will realize it's like, you know what, that is a good point. And I have experienced people being like, you're right, let's all do it, and they're all like dudes and stuff, so it's just,
I think
like,
sometimes the dudes just don't think about it because they don't have to.
well, it's,
So sometimes you bring it up and they're like, oh.
well, media has never really made them bring it up because everything's always been for them. So if you're like, wait, everything hasn't always been for me. Imagine what that was like, and they'd be like, oh no, the kids. and then it comes around. So it's, people want to do the right thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just, you just gotta be loud about it.
And it's been better lately.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's getting better.
And I love it because my entire design team is women. My entire storyboard team is girls. It's rad. And I kind of feel like we're winning the war of attrition. Like, just the studio is almost 50% women now. Like, and they're coming up the ranks, and they're like, I want director, I want supervisor, I want this. I'm like, get it, girl. You know? And they want it. They have pitches and they have show ideas they want to do, and they're just. And what I love is like everyone gets down on millennials. Oh, millennials, so entitled. Blah. I'm like, good. I want them entitled because they're gonna come in and they're gonna expect to be treated well. They're gonna expect to get the money. They're gonna expect to get their shows made, and
They don't put up with crap.
No,
Millennials are killing the sexism industry.
So I'm excited for the younger generation coming up, and I love helping them get to the skill level they need, because good, smash.
And what I love about them too, because I a lot of them are my story artists. What I love about them is that they look out for each other. They network with each other. It's on a show where a bunch of people left it, and everyone who left, like wherever they ended up, they were pulling each other with them. They were like bailing you, like here's the life raft, here you go. Yeah. And it was just so incredible to see how they look out for each other, get each other into the business, get each other up the ranks. It's really awesome. Yeah. And I haven't seen any other generation that was like that. Ours wasn't.
Oh, there wasn't a lot of us either.
No. There's a lot of competition in our generation. Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're getting towards the end here. They actually were kind enough to give us an extra 15 minutes, so round of applause for that. I'm kind of combining quite a few questions here because we're getting a lot of the same ones, but for aspiring animators and artists and just people out there and young women that want to get into the animation industry or want to start doing this professionally, what advice would you give to them?
It's really all about your skill level, so you just have to never stop. You just, set your sights on what you want and just practice it. I talk to a lot of people, I'm like, what do you want to do? Oh, maybe boards, maybe design, I don't know. And it's like, you've got to pick one. You got to pick one, and you should pick the one you love the most. I mean, that's the one I tell people, like, well, which one do you enjoy doing better? Because you're going to be doing it a lot, you better enjoy it. So that's number one. One thing I tell young women, and maybe millennials don't need this advice, but that's, you gotta be pushy. You especially girls, you gotta be pushy. You gotta make sure you're noticed. You gotta get over being shy. That was a huge thing for me. I was really shy, and it was like 24, 25 before I realized, like, oh, this is really not working for me. This is really working against me. People were literally forgetting that I existed. So I started like really putting myself out there, making sure I was noticed. Another thing I recommend, once you do start working, fight for credit. Don't be humble, because people believe you. So like if you're good at something, say you're good at it, push yourself forward, but the skill set is more important than anything. So you just have to draw and write and practice and practice.
The thing that got me my first work, and the thing that has gotten me pretty much all my jobs after that, it was coming out of college, and you don't have to have it, you can have it earlier than that. But I had like my thesis film, and that was one film, and it was like, I did it all by myself, and it's like, hey, what's up, here's me, this is what I do, and this is what I like, and people liked it, and that got me jobs. So if you make yourself, like if you get just a little short story, and you make it soup to nuts, like I said, you gotta specialize. You'll find out what of the things you really like doing if you just sit down and make a film yourself. And it doesn't have to be like super high budget or anything. It's just like, what do you like to do? How do you know how to do it? And then just give it a shot. Is it Flash? Is it claymation? Is it like paper puppets? Real puppets? Like, I don't know, anything.
Your voice too,
and your voice, yeah. And it's like, just like have some fun, and then you have like a nice thing that you did all by yourself, and that someone will like it. If you worked hard enough on it and you cared enough about it, someone will like it and you will get work. Yeah.
Yeah, all those. So mine are always 10,000 hours, you have, because it's the skill set, like you need to be employable, and so, you got to get through 10,000 bad drawings till you get to the, good ones. So start now, get all the bad ones out of the way. And the other one would be tenacity and grit, like just never giving up on yourself or your dream, and just being dedicated and fierce about that passion. And then also know yourself. I talk to a lot of young artists too about, there's so much animation now, and it's so diverse. There's adult stuff, there's stuff for I have friends who love to draw really cute things, and then they're like, well, is it bad that I'm just wanting to work in preschool? I'm like, if you want to work on preschool, embrace that. Like, they walk around with your dolls. That's awesome. Nobody's walking around with like a Gravity Falls doll that I'm aware of. But there's, do they? I don't know. Yeah. So I don't think they do. But the point is that know who you are and don't apologize for that. Like, if you're feature bound and that's what you're thinking, and then you got a long road ahead of you and a lot of skill set to get under your belt. But believe your dream and follow it.
I think that my main piece of advice for people who are in high school or interested in getting into the industry is don't limit yourself, because I think that especially in America, we really sort of, when people think of animation, they only think of big studios. and there's so much more out there than just big studio animation. So, I mean, I might be contradicting Laura a little bit here, but actually say, like, don't limit yourself to just being a storyboard artist. Do all the things that you love. If you love to draw dancers, go to dance performances. Don't just watch it on YouTube. Like, go experience the things that you love and figure out how you can combine them all together, because I started like going towards animation in the industry, and then I found out more about the industry and was like, I don't think that I would really fit in there. And so I ended up just being like, all right, fine. I'm just gonna do the things that I love. I'm gonna figure out how to combine my drawing and painting and video production and projection without just being forced for a career. And ended up getting most of my jobs were created for me. So I've only had to interview for like 2 jobs. Everything else, I'm like, this is what I do. This is who I am. I have all my work here, and you gotta put in hours. You gotta go through, just make all the work that you can. So when you show somebody, they're gonna know exactly who you are and what you can do for them and your skill set. And I think that that's super, super important, is to not limit yourself to a career, to a job. The other thing is play. Play all the time. Play as much as you can. You need to play. You need to play. And you wanna have your job to be that play for you. That, I think, is, if your job is playing for you, you're gonna be set for life. That's what I'd say.
I don't have much to add. I might contradict everyone a little bit, maybe because I come from the Canadian system and we almost entirely are just service. But you have to have versatility. And I think what I mean by versatility is you have to know how to break down a design so you can draw it, and in many different styles. It's awesome if you have your own style, that's great. You should develop that and bring that. But at the same time, you should show that you can do a couple other things, because that might get you a few more openings. And once your foot's in the door, you can start pushing your style and start pushing yourself in the direction that you like more. So, I mean, because I started out, I didn't want to be a BG cleanup artist. And then they offered me flash builds, and I actually went and left the industry for a year because I didn't want to be pushed into a non-drawing job. I wanted the drawing job. But the thing is, I made contacts in that first job that allowed me to get the other jobs.
Actually, I want to expand on that a little bit, because I always tell a story about a guy I knew who started at Cartoon Network as an intern, and one thing he did that really impressed me was he really put himself out there. He would come to the people who worked on the show. He would take design lists that were for the show and do them. You know, he would draw the designs that were needed for the episode, not because he thought we were gonna be like, these are so great, we're gonna use them, because we didn't. But
you can't.
probably not. But he would come to us for feedback, and he'd take our feedback very seriously, and then he would, we saw him improve. But because he put himself out there, we knew who he was, because he was friendly, we all liked him, and because we saw him improving, taking feedback well, all of a sudden a prop design position came up, which is like an entry point artist position, and we were like, oh my God, you should use Ian. He's so great. And now he's a director, you know, like 15 years later, but like he got as a storyboarder about 5 years after that. Yeah. So like the fact that he, you know, an internship, like I've seen so many interns who just get scared and they just hide and they get the coffee and make the copies and you never see them again. And it's like the fact that he made himself noticed and known as somebody who was gonna be great to work with, that's really how he got himself in the door. So like, don't take those like crappy jobs like for granted. Like, get an internship, be a PA.
Sometimes you're working with someone who's been on some massively great stuff and they're just on this job, and you find them, you should pick their brain, you should come to them all the time. I also feel like being visible. When I got back in the business, I took a prop design job, and it was only a freelance job. And I said, can I come in the 2 days a week that I do this for?
Yeah.
And they said, sure. Because I was working at like the aquarium as a ticket seller. It was awful. But I knew that if I was in the building and people saw me every day, that I was going to be remembered as more likely to get the next job. And then storyboard revisions came up, and that was it.
Yeah, and then you move up from there.
Yeah, and move up
So
from
those
there.
foot in the door positions might not be fun getting coffee, but you can use it.
You
can
can.
use it.
I don't know why it's always a prop designer position too, because we had that happen on Peabody and Sherman too. This guy's like, I want to do creative work, and it was prop design. It was like, so like, everybody forgets about prop design.
Yeah.
Remember it.
Yeah, no, that's
It always seems
such
to
an
be the
important point.
secret opening point.
Come and draw a bucket.
Yeah, make it the best bucket ever.
They need a cup.
There's actually a lot of artists who've gotten their start in PA positions as well, and used it to their advantage because it was that foot in the door, and then they knocked on doors. And I think, you know, we struggle with shyness and stuff, and and that's the one regret I have looking back is how long it took me to know that it was okay to ask for help. How long it took me to go and show my work to, you know, a supervisor and ask for feedback. And now when I have people come to me, if they ask me for feedback and they don't do it, and they don't follow up on that and do the note, I'm like, yeah, you don't care enough. Like, you just didn't, and you kind of wasted my time. And I'm a busy person. But the ones who do follow up and take a note, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that guy's hungry or that girl's hungry. Like, you know, I'm gonna think about them for the next opening. And,
Even if they're not even the best skill set, they've got that thing where like, I can make, that person's gonna work hard.
I can train them.
And I can train them. They'll get there because they're working hard already.
Someone who's really, really, really good at drawing but doesn't listen is not as good as someone who's like, I'm not that good yet, but then they show that they are both willing and capable of learning. That's like 1,000,000 times better.
And I literally know people who have not been hired because they can't take direction or take a note. And people know that and will refuse to hire them, no matter how good they are.
Yeah, I think that having the ability to take risks, but knowing that if you're able, I'll give you one piece of advice. The vice president of the CG studio I worked at gave me this really great piece of advice in life in general and said, imagine like you're gonna take a risk, imagine the worst case scenario of what could happen from taking this risk. And if you're okay with that, do it. And that was it for me. I figured out a lot of that because if you're gonna take a risk and you're like, okay, I'm gonna walk out the executive producer's door and I'm just gonna go after him. Worst case scenario, you get blacklisted. Don't do it, But figure out like if it's somebody who is like, I'm really interested in this person's opinion. You approach them, you go for it. Worst case scenarios, they tell you no. That's okay. I think that's the ability to go out there, put yourself out there, like the individual you're talking about is super important because animators are usually really shy, like really introverted, and I feel like half the time when I'm teaching kids it's like just to get them to feel like their voice is wanting to be heard. I want to hear their voice.
All right,
And
speaking of voices, I feel horrible for that transition, but we actually have to stop here. I am so sorry. I'm trying to silence the women's voices, but thank you so much everyone for coming. Thanks everyone for coming. And I just want to remind everybody that Careen and Katrina are going to be doing autographs next. If you want to see them and get some one-on-one time and get their autographs in the autograph room. And Lauren is doing a fundraiser in a little while, and tickets are still available for that. So if you want to go to that, grab your tickets now. And again, thank you so much for coming. You are all wonderful.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you.